New area of interest, a threat to coastal Mexico and beyond, with many other systems to watch on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for August 16th. So we've got 3 tropical cyclones active right now with names. Dora, though, no longer with us, an ex-Cyclone now, still traceable though quite clearly. Lan is on its way out as well, past Japan now. Fernanda is the strongest storm active, a Category 2 at the present time, and Greg continuing through the Central Pacific. Day 77 of Atlantic hurricane season, and we've stepped up some of the chances for this potential period in the Atlantic. A 40% chance for the Central Atlantic system and a 20% out further east that will affect the Cape Verde Islands. So big question marks over how that will transpire, but we'll wait and see. Day 93 in the Eastern Pacific, and along with those 2 storms that are out to sea, we've got this 90% chance that's very nearly tropical cyclone status and could prove to be a significant threat to the coast of Mexico, particularly Baja California. And in the Western Pacific, Lan still just about holding on the tropical storm status, much weaker now, although still has a deep pressure. Ex-Dora, still a low pressure system, but doesn't have a circulation anymore, not a proper one, and a 10% area of interest for the area that Lan has been in the last few days, south of Japan. In the North Indian Ocean, nothing to look at right now, but still quite a bit of moisture and convection occurring along that western coast of Myanmar and the Malay Peninsula. So let's take a look first at Fernanda. Here it is right now. It's no real threat to land at all, and its distance is a formality really. 1515 from Cabo San Lucas, 1803 from San Diego, 1916 from Los Angeles, 3376 from Hilo, Hawaii, and 3664 from Honolulu. The storm will continue northwestwards, and we probably now expect a gradual weakening trend. It's made a good account of itself in the last 24 hours, but overall it has weakened a little bit, but it stayed steady in the last 12 of those hours. Now, Invest 90E, here it is, low pressure system right now, 90% chance of development. It's currently 534 kilometers from Acapulco, 597 for Zihuatanejo, 828 from Manzanillo, 1021 from Puerto Vallarta, and 1331 from Mazatlan, all in Mexico. Storm's expected to move northwestwards and could rapidly intensify, and we expect that it is probably going to become a major hurricane and a much larger one than the recent ones we've been seeing. So let's take a look at satellite imagery across all of these systems right now. There's a lot to look at. Here's what's left of Lan. I say it's still just about holding on there, but it will lose its tropicality very soon, probably within the next 6 hours. Very broad, enormous system now. What's left of that eye there, still a bit of feature, with some decent convection still on that northern side. There's radar imagery showing that most of the rain has cleared, but still a few areas still getting quite significant inundations there that could cause landslides and flooding. Now here is Fernanda. Its eyes still quite visible, although it is clouded over in those last few frames, gradually moving west-northwestwards, still holding on quite well though. It's obviously nowhere near as good as it looked yesterday, but it's still fighting in and around that Category 2 status, and it's pretty good value for it actually. Here's Invest 90E, and it is a very broad system. We had an ASCAP pass not long ago, a partial one albeit, but it appeared to be way too wide and elongated to classify at this time. And estimated winds are probably 35 miles per hour, considering that ASCAP caught 30 mile per hour winds, but did not sample what was likely the strongest northeastern quadrant. Here is Tropical Storm Greg, still hanging on in there. It's around 45 miles per hour, pressure 997 millibars. Had a good burst of convection earlier, but it started to fade away there. It's starting to look a little bit asymmetric, even more so than previously. Gradually moving westwards, doesn't have much of a life ahead of it. Continuous movement well to the south of the Hawaiian Islands. Sea surface temperatures in the eastern Pacific are looking decent still off the coast of Mexico, above 30 degrees Celsius, right up the Gulf of California. On that western coast of the Baja California peninsula, it stretches up a little bit. In the Atlantic, though, temperatures extremely warm still in the Gulf of Mexico, as we've been banging on about for a good while. 32 degrees Celsius for quite a large patch. Gulf Stream looking really strong as well. Open Atlantic, quite cooler, and certainly in the central Atlantic, storms will struggle a little bit, but once it gets towards the western Atlantic, they'll fire up again. Western Pacific also looking decent, but you can clearly see one or two holes there caused by Typhoon Lan in the last few days northwest of Ogasawara, and still one or two little gaps from Canoon. But in general, the waters are rebounding back again, as you'd expect, near the Philippines. That's the hottest point right now, over 30 degrees Celsius near Luzon. North Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal is holding on quite fine. It's cooled a little bit towards the north there, but generally 29 degrees Celsius. Arabian Sea is struggling at this time of year. It's quite common for that to happen with strong winds from the west. And here's the Southwest Indian Ocean, very cool now into its off-season, well into winter here now. Australia, barely any parts of the coast reaching 26 degrees Celsius, and the same story for Fiji and for most of the islands of Vanuatu, but they'll rebound back again in a couple of months. Anomalies then, Western Pacific is fairly close to average, one or two hot spots there north of the Mariana Islands and in the South China Sea. Eastern Pacific is a tale of hot and cold there. The western part of the tropics in the East Pac are cold compared to average, but the eastern part is above average there, which will certainly aid in West 90E. Atlantic is well above average, particularly in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf Stream, and in the main development region up to 3 degrees above. Look at the Caribbean Sea now for oceanic heat content. It is a whitewash, extremely high energy levels there, with very high potential. Eastern Pacific, a few spots there as well looking decent, certainly better than last year off the coast of Mexico. And in the Western Pacific, a nice trail there now extending from the eastern Mariana Islands through Guam and the Marianas towards the Philippines. GFS computer models, this is the next 5 days, and it's sort of keen on both systems now, but look at the one on the west. GFS really starting that one up with a decent progress that it makes, and there it is, becoming a hurricane within the 5-day period there. That's why, one of the reasons why we've upped it to 40%, just increasing model consensus from other models as well. ECMWF gives both of them a shot as well. Don't look at the CMC though, it develops 5 storms in the next 7 days, and I don't think that will happen in that basin. Eastern Pacific then, here we are looking at this next system, of course, a very large one. Compare it to Fernanda there, which is dying off to the west. A huge hurricane on the cards here, becoming at least a category 3 with a pressure on the GFS there of 948 millibars at the peak. One or two runs in the last 2 days did call for a slightly stronger storm, but then again one or two runs had a slightly weaker one, so around the mark. And you can see that those hurricane force winds do reach Baja California, Sur, and possibly towards the north as well. There's land continuing off towards the northeast, still looking decent in structure, affecting the east coast of Russia there by the time we get towards the later part of this week. And behind that, well, Dora is a shell of itself. It may even have one more shot at trying to get back to tropical cyclone status, but I think it will fail. And behind that, it's just lots of messy stuff going on in the Western Pacific. One or two systems trying to form very broad there east of Ogasawara. Now then, for the rainfall projections, we're now looking towards this invest and the rainfall amounts across the coast of Mexico, up the Baja California peninsula. This is the next 7 days, and you can see 2 trails there. The main one, of course, from the storm, it's at the core, and we assume on the right hand side that's from some of its trailing bands which will be proceeding up along the coast with it. So near Cabo San Lucas, getting up above 7 inches of rain there. That's nearly 200 millimeters. Further north there in California, actually, 7 inches possible there, and 6 inches maybe in LA County. And to the south, where the storm will be passing near the center at its strongest intensity, 20 inches out at sea. That is 500 millimeters of rainfall. So of course these rugged areas, certainly the mountains will get the more rainfall, could cause flooding and landslides. Let's check the longer range then, and we're first looking at the Atlantic once again with this hurricane, which continues to build and develop. Now this is a departure from what the GFS was originally calling for in previous days, where the system would die off. It actually continues and gets a little bit stronger as it proceeds towards the western Atlantic. And if you look carefully near Cuba, towards the end of the 10-day period, something else might be starting to fire up. Along that south coast of Cuba, there it is, first passing western Jamaica and then towards the Isle of Youth. Keep watching that one in the future. Now look at this potential hurricane brushes the coast of California there, could still even be tropical once it reaches the border. It will be close, but nonetheless that could be gale force winds for some massive populations along that coastal area, Los Angeles, San Diego, and maybe even a little bit beyond there before it dies off very quickly after that. So really something to watch out for. That's probably about 7 days away, and we missed the end of that sequence there with one or two other systems that may be forming in that East Pac Basin, really starting to warm up. Now then, the Western Pacific, an extremely broad system up there towards the northeast, which doesn't get itself going properly, and then a much smaller one with a much better chance just passing south of Hong Kong and China, and then eventually moving towards the Leetsu Peninsula and could affect that region. There it is, developing around about the 24th, 25th, so still quite some distance away. That's a tropical storm. You can scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store, where we have all of our usual items, including full season and individual storm animations on request. Also, a survival of the Still Waiting for Hone t-shirt. It is still going because Greg fooled a lot of people and angered a lot of people by forming and not getting the Hone name. Oh dear. Well, here's the Atlantic. Look at this. A significant hurricane passing very close to Bermuda, and another one. Look at that. Really moving up through southern Florida there, and then onto the outer banks of North Carolina with a pressure down in the 970s, and could then make landfall possibly as a Category 2. Watch again with these both systems, both active at the same time, and there they are continuing upwards. I'm not sure about the validity of this because they do get pretty close together. There's the first one moving off into an extremely large extratropical cyclone with hurricane force winds for the British Isles at the end of that run. Now, Eastern Pacific, more oddness going on here. Two storms chasing each other there, and another one just off the coast of Chiapas and Oaxaca in eastern Mexico. So potentially three systems there in that long range period. I doubt that, but stranger things have happened in the Eastern Pacific. But nonetheless, certainly a very active period if the GFS has its way. And in the Western Pacific, watching again these two systems, the first one there moving through the Leetsu Peninsula and then into the Gulf of Tonkin, and becomes possibly a brief typhoon before making landfall in Vietnam. Of course, that's very far out. One or two more storms forming there around a general low pressure Gaia. Really complicates things for the forecaster. This massive common low pressure area that often exists in August, usually in the Western Pacific, can cause all kinds of strange scenarios, and there's one or two storms on either side of that there. Speaking of which, Force 13's Eastern Tour is only 3 weeks away. I'll be in Athens, Singapore, Cebu and Hong Kong during September. And if you want to tag along for the ride, at least for a little bit, or just meet up somewhere, you can send me a message on any of our platforms. You can also chat to us on Discord, on our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13 for tropical weather and general weather chat around the world with over 3,500 other weather watchers. Not too far back to cast your mind to this other mess, particularly in the Western Pacific, that was August 16th, 2018. We had 5 tropical storms active and a remnant low. The remnants of Hector, Tropical Storm Sulik, Bebinca, Rumbia, Ernesto and Lane. Rumbia is the highlight of today. It was making landfall in China, a very broad system and very underestimated system as well, with winds of only 60 miles per hour. I do believe that one caused quite a lot of damage over there, and as such was an underestimated storm. 5 years ago now, and we did cover all of that live. back in 2018. But back to this year, the next name in the Atlantic is Emily. In the Eastern Pacific, Hillary looks like it could be on its way now. Central Pacific's next name is still Hone, and really, I mean, we're just demoralised after what happened earlier this week, aren't we? The Western Pacific's next name is Saola, and in the North Indian Ocean it will be Tej. We've had 3 majors in a row in the Western Pacific and 6 typhoons in a row as well there. We are code blue for 2 systems right now, LAN and the Eastern Pacific Disturbance. Next name in the Australian region is Jasper. Southwest Indian Ocean starts with Alvaro, and South Pacific's next name is Lola. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll return tomorrow night.